All right, I think we can get started.
Let's do it.
All right, yeah, for everybody in here, um, we are working on the cybersecurity workshop today, and this workshop is presented by Silicon Labs. If you don't know them, they do a bunch of IoT infrastructure stuff, and they're based out of Austin, Texas, and they actually have a Q&A tomorrow, right after hacking's done. So if you're into that kind of stuff, check them out tomorrow. And I'll hand it off to Raghav.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like Abhi said, we're happy to have all of you here. And SIGPwny is, I guess, one of the best cybersecurity organizations at UIUC. So make sure to check them out if you're on campus or a UIUC student. And yeah, I think I'll let Thomas take it from here.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Thomas. I'm the current president of SIGPwny, and we are going to be hacking Illinois, literally, tonight. So let's turn off the music and get started. Unless we want to keep the music, does anyone have a consensus?
I think we should turn the music off.
Let's turn the music off. All right. So outline real quick. Who are we? What is cybersecurity? Then we're going to break into the SQL Center, and then we're going to do some SQL injections. All right, let's do it. So who is SIGPwny? So SIGPwny is the largest undergraduate computer security club here at University of Illinois. Not only that, we are the largest ACM SIG under UIUC's ACM. Our website is sigpwny.com, and our Twitter is SIGPwny, and our Discord is that, but you can also just go to sigpwny.com/Discord, and you can get our Discord link right away. I'm Thomas Quigg. I'm the president. If you want to know more about me, you can do go to quigg.dev. If you don't care about all the details and just want the short information about me, go to whoami.quigg.dev, and you can get a quick who am I of me. I'm going to pass it off to Nathan. Who are you?
What's up, guys? I'm Nathan. I've been a part of SIGPwny for a couple semesters now. I'm not sure, but yeah, if you want to, I guess I don't have a website yet, but follow.dev links to my GitHub if you're interested. But I'll just be talking about some SQL injection later on. But yeah, until then, I'll pass it back to Thomas.
All right, and then lastly, real quick, we got one person in here who I see their name, Ian. Ian is Ian. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I am a former president of SIGPwny. I work for a security consulting company based in Seattle. If you have any questions about what security consulting work is like, I would be more than happy to answer them.
All right, thank you, Ian. So let's move on from that. What is cybersecurity? So first of all, basic information about cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, or computer security, is the act of breaking and or protecting technological systems. It is a huge, huge, huge industry. So there's $61.9 billion in North America alone in 2020, and that's going to be globally worth more than $400 billion by 2030. Real quick for nomenclature, I'm sure you've probably heard a bunch of different stuff with cybersecurity, InfoSec, computer security. The subreddit is called NetSec. It really depends on who you're talking to, what they respond to the best. And then also hacking is what we're doing tonight, and cybercrime is the real bad illegal stuff. So we are hackers, cyber criminals are the bad guys. Here's the North American cybersecurity market. It's as of 2020, it was $61 billion. It's getting really big come the next few years, especially given COVID and the fact that everything is online now. We need people in the industry more than ever. Before I go any further, my lawyer that I don't have has told me that I need to tell you this information. That link right there goes to the CFAA from 1976. It's a very outdated computer law act known as the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. It dictates what you can and cannot do in terms and the punishments for if you do what you shouldn't do about attacking protected computers. Now, what is a protected computer? It is a government computer. It's a computer that maintains critical infrastructure, or it's a computer that participates in interstate trade. And that's almost every computer, because I have bought apps on my phone, and my phone sends payment to Apple, which is actually a company based out of Rhode Island, believe it or not. And regardless of where Apple's based, it's a different state. So it's interstate commerce. If you've ever bought something on Amazon, the TLDR of this is don't break into something unless you have explicit permission to do so. I'm also not a lawyer, so I can't give you legal advice. So if you're already in trouble, find an actual lawyer. This is not a damage control lecture. This is a how to learn this stuff lecture. Additionally, and here's the statement that will make my fake lawyer really, really happy. I'm not suggesting, telling, or implying you should actually go do any of these things on live systems without permission. If you do that, that is on you, not on me. That being said, let us break into the Siebel Center after hours. Awesome. Let's do it. So, activity 0, we're going to be breaking into Siebel. This is the Siebel Center. This is where HackIllinois would be going on right now. It would be 11. Technically, we'd already be into Siebel. But say you wanted to get into there right now. How would you do that? How would you break in after hours? Now, there's a few questions that we have to ask. First big question is, what are your objectives? What do you need when you're in Siebel? Do you just need to get into the building? Do you need papers? Do you need access to a computer? We're going to say, for the purpose of this experiment, you just need to get into the building after hours. Also, what are your resources and what are your capabilities as someone who's trying to break into this building? That is up to you, completely up to you. And then also, what are the targets? So what, in this case, it's the building, but what are you going to be looking at? And what are the assumptions? This is the most important one. What are the assumptions about the building that exist that you can break to try and get into the building? So back to Siebel. Let's open it up to everyone on the floor now. How are we breaking in here? Just feel free to just reach out and just openly say or drop it in the chat if you don't feel super duper comfortable saying. A breaching charge. That's an option. All right. You can steal an ID card. I like that. Does anyone want to speak up and say how they'd get in?
Our group had a lot of creative ideas, so I'd be happy to share them on their behalf.
Yeah, definitely. Feel free to share.
So consider Einstein Bagels and imagine that they have delivery trucks, surely, at some point. So imagine dressing up as a delivery worker.
Absolutely.
And, getting in that way.
That's a good one. I like it. Staying overnight. That's a good one. Just stay. All right. Anyone else want to chime in? Otherwise, I'm going to move on. I got 15 on the next slide. I thought about this a lot. Get a clipboard, vest, carry a ladder. No one will question it. 100% true. Act like you belong. I think there's a website about that. Pretend to be a professor. That's a good one. We got some young professors, just I'm a professor. Get in. Pick locks if there are any. Yeah, the service the service entrance down by the garage has locks. They're pickable. Not that I've tried. Again, don't break laws, but there's definitely pickable locks down there. Okay, here's the 15 ways that I could think of off the top of my head to break into Siebel. The green ones are like the go ones, like generally if you do this, you're not going to get into trouble in any way. So you can walk in during the day and you could just stay until close. A lot of what people probably thought about that one, just walk in. You might not even need to hide in the bathroom, just like sit in a chair until it's all closed. You can wait for someone to open the door and prop it open. Just leave the door open until you need to get in. You can walk in with someone who's already authenticated at the same time. I love this one. Just go up to the door and ask for someone to let you in. Chances are they might. That's highlighted because there's a whole field there of just abusing human kindness called social engineering. If you're interested in that, feel free to reach out to me. Additionally, you could find a door someone left open. So, try all the doors. See if there's one unlocked, you're in. Then the yellow ones are, kind of suspicious. You can pretend to be a delivery driver. Hi, I've got a Jimmy John's here for Wade. Please let me in. You could get an authenticated carded key. So there's a bunch of different ways to do that. You could find one on the street, literally. You could just swipe one off of someone. You could go ask to be authenticated for a building because of whatever reason. You can wait for a blackout and hope that the failure state of the door locks is open, because who would want to lock a building if the power was off? Like, you need emergency services to get in. So, wait for a blackout, or you could kill the power to the door and just hope that it fails. You can find an open door on a balcony. I will guarantee you now that the 4th floor balcony door that no one ever goes to is always unlocked, because people will go out there and then not have a way back in. So they just leave it unlocked. Also, another good one, just get a job at SIGPwny and just be given authentication to come in whenever. So those are the yellow ones. Those are a little like, why are you doing this? It's a little suspicious. Let's talk about the destructive ones. You can break a window, destroy weak locks. The big thing about the red one, run through a wall with a car. If you have enough power, you can break through any system. That's the truth. It's about protecting against reasonable attacks. You could use an electromagnet, or you could threaten or bribe an employee. Those were off the top of my head. You can also not break in. Just what are your objectives? If you just need to do some surveillance, you don't have to break in. All right. So what this teaches is the adversarial mindset, and what that is how to think when approaching a security situation. It's what would an adversary do, and it's also what assumptions exist and how could you break them. So that's what's going on there. Does anyone have questions about just how to break in, or the adversarial mindset, or what's going on between those two? And feel free to type in chat if you don't feel comfortable. I'll wait for like 30 seconds. All right, looking like nobody. If you guys want to hear about the best example of how I violated a bunch of assumptions, stick around for like 5 minutes after, and I'll tell you about the time I compromised a whole 250 employee network through a smart soda machine. So stick around afterwards if you want to hear that story. I'm going to hand it off to Nathan, and we are going to do some SQL injection.
Okay, what's up, everybody? So as Thomas gave an overview of security and how we approach, security problems with an adversarial mindset, I'm hoping in this part of the talk to give you an actual example in the real world of how we would violate that, and literally how we could theoretically hack a website. And I encourage you all to pay close attention to this, because I actually have 2 websites which I will give to you at the end, which I control, and I give you permission to try out these techniques on those websites to see if you can hack the website, given what you've just learned with SQL injection. All right, let's do the next slide. Okay, so first we have to talk about what SQL is. And so SQL is like this language which interfaces with SQL databases. And so basically I can ask the SQL parser to say, okay, select everything from my users where this user has username admin and the password is admin password 123, right? And then it will happily go look that up for us and then return us the admin user. If that password was correct or incorrect, sorry, it would return no results. And so again, SQL itself is just a language to interact with databases. Okay, and then we're going to look at how an application of this with a web application in PHP, and then we're going to hack it. Okay, so let's talk about SQL injection again from a high level. So this is one of the most common web vulnerabilities in the early 2010s and a little bit before 2010s. It's not so common anymore, although it still is relevant today. It's really just not as common as it was. Not with these new web technologies and database things. It's easier than ever to sanitize user input and using prepared statements and such. The most commonly where you're going to see this is when we're going to do some sort of database lookup. And so this could be when we're logging in as a user. So we need to check username and password, or maybe we're in a shopping cart and I'd like to look for, I'm not sure, basketballs, for example, and it would sort, using items in the database where a name is similar to basketball or something like this. These may be opportunities for us to use SQL injection. Okay, and so there are potentially devastating side effects to use SQL injection. Not only can we maybe log in as any user, we can also dump all the user information in that database. Like we could get information about all the users, their passwords, their phone numbers, potentially a huge amount of these big database leaks you hear about are probably SQL injection. And there is actually potential to escalate privileges from that SQL statement, just that one SQL statement, to actually get code execution potentially in some circumstances. And from there, you can, of course, just change the contents of the website. You can backdoor it to get passwords if your passwords are hashed, etc. Okay, so the idea behind SQL injection is that given a valid SQL statement, if they take your user input that you control as the attacker and they put it into the statement, we can put a malicious input, which will actually change the logic of that SQL statement. What we're going to see, that's the notion of the injection. We're going to show you some examples. Going back to what Thomas said about the security mindset, what are the assumptions that the authors of this PHP script I'm about to show you have made? Let's take a look at the PHP script, and we'll talk about that. Next slide, Thomas. Okay, here's a PHP example of using SQL to look up a user in a database. Username and password are received from input that the attacker we provide. And then we have a query, which is this actual SQL syntax, or the language what the SQL parser understands. We say, please select all the entries from our user table, such that this username is what the attacker has provided, and the password is what the attacker has provided. And we're going to query it, look at the results, and say, welcome. I've left out the thing here to say that if there are results, just for brevity. So what are the assumptions that the person has made who has written this code? The assumption here is that username and password are valid data, but this is not something that you could ever assume. You always have to, when you program to make a secure software, you have to consider everything that a malicious attacker could do. So that's why the exercise is good, to think through all the possible things that we could put for username and password, which will violate some assumptions. So Thomas, if you want to click next. So the big question here, what can we as attackers provide to username and password such that the query will change in its behavior? Let's look to the next slide. Let's take a closer look at the query. So we have here the list of query. This is the only important thing about this PHP script. This is what is vulnerable. When we provide username and password, it will do a text replacement on $username and replace it directly with what we input. So if you want to click next, Thomas. Let's consider these following parameters. Take note of this. If I put as my username hello with a single quote and a double minus sign, imagine replacing username in that query with this. What does the resulting query become? Thomas, you're going to click next. You can see that it directly replaced username. What is wrong with this statement? If you want to click next one more time. Observe that the minus sign is the same as a line comment. So this would be the equivalent to like / in C and C++. In other words, whatever comes after this -- is ignored by the SQL parser. Therefore, we as attackers have injected our SQL to change the semantics of the SQL expression to read, please select from my data from my tables, or from my user table, any user with the username hello. Notice how we have completely eliminated the requirement that a password is equal to something. In other words, if you want to click next, Thomas, our clever input for this username that we've injected into the SQL statement causes the SQL statement to return the first user with the username hello, or I mean all users with username hello, without any password criteria. And so already, imagine if I had replaced hello with admin, right? Then it would be select star from users where username is admin, and it would happily return that user to us. There's no longer a password requirement. Next slide. Okay, so let's look at some limitations to this. What if we didn't know the admin's username, for example? There are some clever things that we could do. Or in this case that I'm going to show you, we're just going to try to discover username and password combinations, which causes the statement to always evaluate to true. In other words, it will return all the users. So let's look to the next slide. If there's anything I want you to take away from this brief SQL talk, it's this string for the username. This is the quintessential SQL injection. This is your bread and butter SQL injection. If you type this into a website, you should not, unless you have explicit permission. Of course, you'll get in big trouble otherwise. But if there's SQL errors or if it returns crazy things, you're probably good. Like it's probably vulnerable to SQL injection. So if we type single quote or 1 is 1, let's observe what the statement becomes. So next slide, or next, yeah. So here we have our prompt again. What happens when I replace username with that string? Notice we select from users where username is the empty string, or always true, right? Because 1 equals 1, it returns true all the time. And so therefore, if you want to click the next, if you recall, SQL parser is not going to care about anything after the -- because that's a comment. So we have changed the semantics of the SQL statement to read, select everything from the users always, right? So it's going to return all the users. And in my particular contrived website that I'm about to show you, it just takes the first user, which is indeed the admin user. So I want you all, again, anything you take away from the SQL bit, to remember this special string. So single quote or 1 is 1. It's just an expression that such that when we put it in place of the username or password, the statement always is true. So then we have to look, let's consider the case where I have username admin and password quote or 1 is 1. This is a variation on this idea, which will always log me in as admin without password. So I'd like you can all think about that on your own time. Okay, so I want you all to write that down right now. quote or 1 = 1 dash dash, because for the website that I'm about to give to you, this is very important. So let's hit the next slide. I think that it's going to give you the thing I've just described, so we can move on to that. Next slide. Okay, cool. And so I have set up 2 websites which I give you explicit permission to go hack. This is something called a challenge. Oftentimes we call it a CTF challenge, capture the flag challenge. It is a vulnerable website that has a bug in it, which I've legally assumed that you're going to provide me proper input to username and password. If you go to hackill.sigpwny.com, it will take you to a site where you can visit the challenges. And in order to have hacked the website and to have obtained, like, to say that you have won, you have defeated the challenge, is when you obtain a string that looks like SIGPwny with these braces. This is known as a flag in CTF competitions. There is so much more to talk about with regards to SQL injection. We have like union-based injection, and it can get quite complicated. But this is like this first stepping stone, and hopefully it gives you some concrete idea of a real-world application to this security and violation of these assumptions. So I'll take questions now. I see there's some in the chat. I'm not sure if there's questions, but I do see in the chat.
That is just me. That's just me copying the big thing that you were thinking of into the chat. Real quick, if you want to confirm your if you want to confirm that you are getting the correct answer, you can feel free to private message myself or Nathan the flag, the answer that you get, and we'll confirm it with you.
Okay, and yeah, so you could just email us that. Typically during these competitions, you get points if you can submit the correct flag to a website, but we don't have that here set up. It's all chill. We will be happy after this. We're going to stick around, and you can DM us questions. We can go into breakout rooms for you if you're very interested in this. So if you get past the challenge 1, which hopefully follows pretty similarly to the slides, challenge 2 is a little bit extra. It might require you to do a little bit of outside research that I didn't tell you in the slides. But I think that you all are capable of it. So I'm interested to hear what you think of these challenges. If you're interested in like these challenges, these hacking challenges, SIGPwny, we offer what we call an internal CTF competition. It runs year round, and we have a lot of cool websites that you can hack to practice your skills. Other applications that are not websites that are vulnerable. And I hope to see you there if you're interested in that kind of thing. Otherwise, I'm here for questions. I'd like to also say thank you so much, Raghav, for having us for this.
Yeah, thank you very much, Raghav.
Setting all this up.
Yeah, for sure. It was awesome having you guys present.